I am Curran Bhatia. We're at Mohan's Tailors in Midtown Manhattan. I am here with one of the greatest UFC MMA trainers, Mike Brown. So, Mike, we're looking back, obviously, at 2019, and one fighter that had a very standout year is Jorge Masvidal. He was voted the 2019 Fighter of the Year by Forbes. So, your job as his trainer, you had to resurrect him, right? His last win was in 2017, and he comes back in 2019. He beats Till. He beats Askren in 5 seconds, and then takes out Nate Diaz for the BMF title. So that's one hell of a year. How were you able to resurrect Jorge Masvidal and make him into what he is now?
It was an amazing year, and I'd love to take credit for all of that. But I mean, this is George. This is he's done this. I mean, he's got a great team behind him. It's many coaches, many great training partners. I mean, I think a lot of it with George is just finding himself, and it was maybe more of a psychological thing for him. He's such a veteran. It's not like he's learning anything new. He always had it in him. I just think it was him finding himself and just dialing things in, fine tuning it. And the sport is now just aware of him. He's been there. He's been an amazing fighter for many years. It's people didn't realize how fantastic he really is.
And he really ramped up the work ethic, it seemed like. And I know that you can't take credit for everything, but of course, in his fight against Askren, he did the flying knee. It was a brilliant chess move. And I know that you guys in the past have said you practiced that over 100 times in the gym. When he was able to execute on that game plan, you as his trainer, people always have a game plan and a strategy. All right. It's rare, though, when that strategy works so flawlessly the way it did there on such a high stage. So what were you thinking when he was running across the ring and he landed the flying knee and got that quick knockout against Askren?
Yeah, it was hundreds and hundreds of times he'd practiced this, right? And I mean, when he came, he was actually his idea to come with the flying knee, and but we all thought like, no, this a really high percent chance this is going to happen, and just the way Askren reacts and the way George uses the technique and has a good feeling and timing for, we knew it would be devastating, brutal, and it was going to be big, and then to see it happen, it was, we were ecstatic. We were happy for George. It's so much hard work, years and years and years of hard work, and all this built up. And we just know how big this was, that we knew it was going to catapult him to another level, maybe even not to the point he is right now. Like, we didn't realize literally he's maybe the biggest star in the sport, perhaps, maybe top 3, maybe top 4, whatever. But he's up there if he's not the biggest star in the sport. But he's the same great fighter he's always been for many years. I think it took the sport a while to catch up. But no, it was an amazing moment. It's a record, UFC record. It'll be very difficult to beat because the bell rings and he sprinted to the center and used one technique to finish the fight. So going to be pretty hard to break that record. And I was ecstatic for him. And
to do it, like we've been saying, at such a big moment and such a big stage. So he was having a great year already, and then he somehow topped that by taking out Nate Diaz at Madison Square Garden. And this was for the BMF title in November. So I wanted to ask you in that fight, early on, you actually noticed Jorge sprinting towards Nate, and he didn't go for the knee, but it seemed like he was about to go for it. So my question is, was there a chance he was actually going to do that against Nate? Because obviously Nate has a very different style than Askren. Askren usually going for the takedown, putting his head down, so it makes him more vulnerable to that. Was he going to execute that against Nate, or was that just kind of an homage to the fight before there?
He actually has like a bunch of tricks. He has many like tricks and techniques he can use from this. If you go back 2 fights, he opened the Till fight with something similar. He ran and sprinted at him, and he went to do like a flying front kick, but it actually ended up striking him in the groin. So it was like the fastest groin shot ever. He like 3 seconds, they were stopping the clock. So that was 2 fights in a row he came with this. Now this was the third. He had something in his back pocket that he was thinking about using. He didn't feel the time was right, so he put it back in the bottle. But he had something special for him.
Well, I'm excited to see the bag of tricks for him in 2020. I mean, he has countless options. Usman's obviously in the picture. Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz, Nick Diaz. I mean, there's so many options. The one other matchup that has been talked about, there's been a lot of crossover from boxing and MMA, and obviously we know about Floyd and Conor and how much money that did. Canelo Alvarez has been called out by Jorge Masvidal, and Canelo said he would be up for that challenge. Do you think that that's a fight that we could see, Jorge Masvidal crossing over to a boxing match with Canelo Alvarez?
Absolutely. I mean, George is all business. For him, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's for, the UFC title, the IBF, WBO, name the boxing title, whatever. For him, it's all about money, and whatever brings the biggest dollars is the fight he's after. So if it's very well possible, if the numbers are right, I mean, he's in. Talk to his manager. Hey, he's ready. He's ready to go.
Canelo Alvarez, arguably the biggest star in the sport of boxing. Jorge now is becoming the biggest star in UFC if he's not already there. So that is just one of your many fighters on your amazing roster. And I know you're in New York for PFL. You got Kayla Harrison. Kayla is training with another GOAT in the sport, Amanda Nunes, who's another one of your fighters. So what is it like seeing these two great women's fighters training together? What is that experience like for you?
I mean, I learn something new almost every day. It's an exchange of knowledge at ATT. It's something Dan Lambert has created many, many years ago. It's a lot of great fight minds all in one place. People from all over the world. And you're seeing Amanda Nunes probably on paper, the greatest female fighter of all time. You can't argue with that. Kayla Harrison, young in her career, fighting for her first world title in mixed martial arts this weekend, building. It's only her seventh fight, moving very fast. But to answer your question, no, it's amazing. It's a dream to be able to be around, hang out, enjoy, and learn from all these world-class athletes. I always consider it we're exchanging knowledge. I'm learning something new all the time. They all bring something different from different backgrounds, different parts of the world. Everybody has their strengths, everybody has their weaknesses, and the sport's evolving, and I'm growing with them. And we're still going, we're still growing, we're still going up.
No, it's been amazing to see the great fighters coming out of ATT. So we talked about the crossover fight with Canelo and Masvidal as a possibility. Another crossover fight that's been mentioned is Amanda Nunes, who we said is the GOAT in UFC. Mm-hmm. There's Clarissa Shields, who's being said as the GOAT in women's boxing. Is there a chance that crossover fight could happen between Nunes and Shields?
See, I don't know how much how much money right now the female boxing is generating. Maybe it's really big. I'm not certain. At the end of the day, it's all about money. If there was more money to be made there, then maybe it's possible. But if it's not, then it wouldn't make sense. I mean, it's all about business. If in that situation, I don't know how much money the women's boxing is drawing in, but women's MMA is gigantic. It's huge. It's big business. I don't know if it would make more sense for Clarissa to come to MMA and give, have her take a shot at it, because I think Amanda's the one that's the big draw, making the big money. So I think it would make more sense to pull her into our world.
So there's so many fighters that I want to ask you about. There's Dustin Poirier, but the one I'm curious about is, I know that you used to train Colby Covington. He fought recently against Usman. It was a really great close fight. It was actually tied on the scorecards going into the last round, which is very interesting. And Usman obviously able to get the finish. But in the last few fights, you have not trained Colby, right? So what exactly happened there that caused you to kind of take a step back from working with him?
No, this is super busy at the gym. There's many fighters, and there's also many great coaches at American Top Team. I had a lot of fighters that I was working with, and I think that he saw that I was busy with a lot of different people. Also, George and I worked together a lot, and I think he saw maybe this is a conflict of interest in a way where I'm working with two guys. And I think he just saw it was him that actually said that, hey, I think that I should have somebody else handle my camp, help me run this next camp. And it started with a Robbie fight. So that's kind of what went down there. I think I have a ton of respect for him. He's an amazing fighter. I actually thought he was up 3-1 in the Usman fight. But I mean, the rounds are very close. I knew it could be all over the place. They weren't easy to score, a lot of those rounds. But I personally thought he was up 3-1 going into the fifth. But yeah, that's what's going on there.
And credit to Usman to being able to finish the fight and take it out of the judges' hands there. So just to wrap it up in terms of your roster, you had to train Poirier for the Khabib fight. And we know Khabib is tough. Very rarely does he lose a round, let alone he's never lost a fight. So how do you prepare for someone like that with that mauling style? When he grabs you, it seems like it's over. How do you as a trainer prepare for someone to fight someone like that?
I mean, it's difficult, obviously because we fell short. So what we did wasn't the right thing, apparently. But I have a crazy amount of respect for Khabib. He's the greatest lightweight on the planet. We work obviously a ton of takedown defense, a ton of jiu-jitsu, a lot of work on getting back to our feet when we're taken down, a lot of cage wrestling defense. I mean, there's a lot to it, a lot goes into it. But conditioning is a major factor. I think maybe his best attribute, even more powerful than his wrestling, is actually his conditioning, his endurance. I think that's what makes him so elite and what allows him to just wrestle so hard for so long, which most people can't do for that long.
And so just to close it out, we know that we're coming to the end of the decade here. When you look back, when you started this decade, you were an active fighter, and then you've obviously transitioned into a mentor, to a coach, and had success in that world as well. So when you look back at what you've accomplished in this decade, can you believe that you have this roster of fighters and all the great things that have been happening and I'm sure will continue to happen for you?
It's a dream come true. And it's not my roster. It's American Top Team's roster. It's what Dan Lambert has created. Every fighter has several coaches, so it's always a team of 3 or 4 of us, or maybe more coaches that are building and working with these guys and getting them to where they're at. But yeah, it's cliche, but I mean, it's the best team in the world, and it's snowballing, man. It's only getting better. It's getting stronger, and I think we'll see the same for many years to come.
And that is my last question here. Just looking ahead to 2020, I'm sure that in your mind you're thinking about all the big matchups that you'll be a part of. I wanted to ask you what those matchups will be, and then I know it's unlikely, but we just saw Fedor and Rampage get in there, and I know that they're similar age to what you are. Is there ever a chance that you would step back into the octagon and compete? And what are you looking forward to in 2020?
No, my competition days are over. I mean, there's parts of fighting that I miss, but there's parts that I don't. And I love what I do. And I wouldn't want to hurt what I'm doing now. We have so many great fighters on our team. I feel like already I'm neglecting some of the athletes that I'm training now because of just don't have enough time for what I should be putting into everybody. But having a fight would take away so much from that. And what I'm looking forward to next year is, real quickly, we got March 7th is Joanna Jędrzejczyk fight. Her chance to regain her strawweight crown. This is something I'm really excited about. Maybe one of the biggest fights of my coaching career, and it's very important. And I'm pretty pumped.
You are the resurrector. You can bring people back, and obviously she's now back on her way to where she's going. So last question, in 2020, are we going to see you at Burning Man?
As long as there's no major fight, a few weeks around it, I'll be there with my my goggles and sunscreen. You'll see me there.
Well, best of luck to you in 2020. I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful year. Congratulations on everything you have achieved in the last decade, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Anytime.
Thank you.